What I mean by happy for no reason is an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on your circumstances. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to feel grief if somebody dies, but along with that grief is also this inner backdrop of peace and well-being that, I am okay. I am unshakable. And yes, I feel grief right now. Or yes, I feel anger if something happens that's an injustice. It's not that you don't feel those things. It's that you have this unshakable state of peace and well-being so that nothing really can make you unhappy again. You can be happy and grieving. You can be happy and angry. But there's that truth of who you are is unshakable.
Welcome to the MINDTRX podcast with breakthrough ideas to live your best life possible and how to make it happen. I'm Paul Scheele, and today we'll be talking with Marci Shimoff. Marci Shimoff is one of the best-selling female nonfiction authors of all time, with record-breaking book sales of more than 15 million. Her books include the New York Times bestseller Happy for No Reason, Love for No Reason, and Chicken Soup for the Woman's Soul. Marci is prominently featured in the movie phenomenon The Secret and narrator of the feature-length documentary Happy. Her inspiring, dynamic, and humorous approach appeals to all as she shares powerful techniques to establish deep and authentic happiness and well-being. On top of it all, she created the Happy for No Reason Paraliminal with me that's included in the MINDTRX app. Marci, it's so good to be with you. Thanks for joining the podcast.
Paul, it is always great to get to be with you, and I'm so looking forward to our conversation and what's going to unfold.
Yes, I've got a lot of juicy things that I'd like to get into. I've always loved your panache, your ability to take charge of your life, to address significant issues and move through them. But also as a teacher, you have a really profound way of assisting people in helping them get to where they want to go. So congratulations on a life of amazing work.
Oh, thank you. I feel very blessed. I'm doing what I love, and it just coincidentally, wonderfully gets to serve people. So I'm very blessed.
Well, there's two books that you have, Happy for No Reason, Love for No Reason, in addition to everything else you've written. But those two, I'd really like to put as a central idea, because one of the things that you have posited for your reading audience is that we are conditioned as people to look outside of ourselves for both those things, for happiness. If I could get the world to work right for me, I'll be happy. Love, if I could just find the right person, then I'll have love. And you've really turned that around to say, no, that both of those exist within us. I'd like to ask you how your personal journey led you to that position.
Yeah, it was my journey. Paul, I'm the least likely person in the world to be writing a book on happiness because I was born depressed. I joke with people that I came out of the womb with existential angst. And I had a great family, great parents. All the circumstances looked like I should have been happy, but I felt like I had this dark cloud around me. I can remember being in kindergarten feeling like the weight of the world on my shoulders. I actually now think that I had maybe some ancestral trauma that I was carrying in my cells. We all have the lineage that we carry with us as well. And so I grew up depressed. My solution when I was a kid was something called sugar. That was the only thing that would make me happy temporarily. So I became a sugar addict. By the time I was in high school, I was about 35 pounds overweight. It didn't help matters. So when I was in my 20s, I did what I think most people in our society do. I think it's what we're trained to do. I set goals for myself. And I figured that once I reached those goals, I would be happy. That's how I would get happy. And I set 5 goals. I'll share them with you because I think a lot of people can relate to them. I wanted to have a successful career helping people, a wonderful husband or life partner, fabulous friends, a comfortable home, and the equivalent of Halle Berry's body. Now, I got 4 out of the 5. I do not have Halle Berry's body, but I have a healthy body for which I'm very grateful. And I worked really, really hard to get all my ducks in a row so that all those things would happen. And Paul, I had a turning point moment. It was in 1998. I had 3 books in the top 5 on the New York Times bestseller list at the same time. It was the first time that had happened. And I had just finished giving a speech to 8,000 people. And I had autographed 5,432 books. My client had a massage therapist massaging my hand so I could keep on autographing. And on one hand, I felt like an author rock star. But I remember after signing that last book, I went up to my hotel room, which was the penthouse suite that my client had gotten for me. I walked over to these huge windows overlooking Lake Michigan. I was in Chicago. I took in that view. And I turned around and I collapsed onto that bed and I burst into tears. And I burst into tears because I realized I had everything I thought I needed to be happy. And it still didn't work. I still felt that same hole in my heart or emptiness in my heart. And I realized this was the end of the line. I could no longer fool myself into thinking that just the next thing was going to make me happy, because it would make me happy for a day or a week or a month, but I wanted the real deal lasting happiness. And that's when I dove headfirst into the study of happiness and I started practicing what I was learning, and it worked.
But what's so powerful about that story is the short-term nature of the fix. And, oftentimes that's how we approach self-development, is that we're looking for a fix for what's broken. And what I love about your books is you say, what's broken is your belief about who you are, not who you are. So how did you then ultimately come to this place of recognizing happiness within yourself and also love within yourself?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was very fortunate in that I was able to interview lots of people. And I interviewed the top researchers in the field of happiness and love, and then also the top, and then people, just everyday people who were living in what I call happy for no reason. And let me just define it so that we know what we're talking about here.
Sure.
What I mean by happy for no reason is an inner state of peace and well-being that doesn't depend on your circumstances. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to feel grief if somebody dies, but along with that grief is also this inner backdrop of peace and well-being that, I am okay. I am unshakable. And yes, I feel grief right now. Or yes, I feel anger if something happens that's an injustice. It's not that you don't feel those things. It's that you have this unshakable state of peace and well-being so that nothing really can make you unhappy again. You can be happy and grieving. You can be happy and angry. But there's that truth of who you are is unshakable. And one of the things I discovered, Paul, and I know you've studied spiritual paths, truths of throughout history, and that is every tradition throughout history has said that our essence is happiness. Our essence is love. It's who we are. Mm-hmm. That Rumi said that our job is only to find the barriers to the love that is already inside. That's a paraphrase. The barriers to what is already there. So I really listened to all of these wise people, and I thought, well, okay, everybody's saying this is the essence of who I am. Let me experience it, because it's one thing to know it; it's another thing to experience it. And I was driven. This is what I wanted in life. And I started doing what I was being told would raise my happiness set point. Let me just share this one other piece that really kind of made everything make sense to me. And that is the research that we all have what's called a happiness set point. And it's like our thermostat setting. And no matter what happens to us, whether it's good or bad, we will tend to return to our thermostat setting, our happiness set point, unless we do something consciously to change it. So people who win the lottery, they are happier for a short period of time, but then they return to their original happiness set point. And same with people who have tragedies. So given that, yeah, you can work hard for anything in order to be temporarily happy, but you're going to come back to your set point. So let's deal with the set point. And the set point, yeah, go ahead.
Well, there were two aspects that I noticed in your work. One was to talk about the happiness set point or the love set point, which you believe there is a strong correlation between the
very
two,
much
or
so.
an analogy anyway. And the other thing is that there's a happiness ceiling. So in terms of that ceiling is also, I think, quite key, especially with respect to the earlier story that you told of. You finally got it all, but there was something there that you were bumping up against. That wasn't your happiness set point at a baseline, was it? It had to do with a happiness ceiling.
Well, yes, I think the happiness set point is kind of the range of our upper limit. That is our upper, and there's a range to it.
Got it.
But when we raise our happiness set point, which to me, that's science has cracked the happiness code. We know what it takes to be happier. This is what everybody from time immemorial, what we've wanted is to be happy. I think this should be headline news, Paul. I think this should be taught in all of the schools. We know how to be happier. We know how to raise your happiness set point. So the upper limit of your happiness is actually raised. All of it's raised.
Got it.
Let's teach this to everybody.
Yeah, well, it is, as you said, it's in the ancient wisdom traditions. It's been talked about forever. And our friend Chenyi Lin says, we've got these 5 primary emotions that are our natural state. There's happiness, there's love, there's peace or groundedness, there's contentment, and there's gratefulness, gratitude, appreciation. And those are all associated with organ systems, again, natural parts of who we are, how we're constructed. And yeah, we're not given much emotional literacy training when we go to school. We have to sort of figure it out by hard knocks, but those hard knocks often teach us the wrong thing. We seek something outside of ourselves, and when it doesn't come or it doesn't last, it's that temporary fix. Then what do we do? So when you did this work and you recognized there was a happiness set point that you could work on raising, what were the practices that became rituals for you? I know you give a lot of great tools, like what are the happiness habits that you can develop, or, what are the doorways that we can open in our 7 energy centers to really be in that embodied state of unconditional love. Beautiful work. What are the practices that you found are the absolute musts for you to be able to live on an ongoing basis in that zone you want to be in?
It's such a great question, and I will absolutely answer it. And I want to say that my answer is a little misleading. And the reason that it's misleading is that we are all very different. And we each have a weaker area that we need to work on. So let me just address that first, and then I'll tell you what I personally needed and found to be the most helpful. So what I found is that we'll talk about happiness first. There are 21 main happiness habits that will raise your happiness set point. And I found that they fell into 7 main areas. And I just want to go through those 7 areas. And as I do, I want people to be thinking, where am I the weakest? Because that is your answer. Where you're weakest, Paul, is not where I'm weakest necessarily. And we each need to start where we're the weakest, because that's where we'll get the greatest result. So I created an analogy, a metaphor. I call it building your inner home for happiness. And a home has 7 main areas. It's got a foundation, 4 corner pillars, a roof, and a garden. And this is how it relates to your happiness. And as I go through these, I want everyone to be thinking to themselves, where am I the weakest? Because that's where you need to start. So the foundation is taking responsibility for your life and your happiness. Do you show up in life as a victim of life? And you know you're a victim if you're blaming others around you, shaming, which is blaming yourself, or complaining, blaming the circumstances, right? So if you find yourself doing that a lot, the first thing you need to do is start taking responsibility for your life, showing up more like a victor in life. Like I can make changes here, right? Then there are the
So on that, let me pause for just a moment. Very often I refer to what are called developmental levels. In psychology, we look at, how we move from childhood to adolescence, adolescence to adulthood. And at the top level of our achievement as adults, it's called the socialized mind. And the socialized mind is we've accepted all of the beliefs, all of the conditions that our culture has taught us, and all the blind spots. And one of them is the victim mentality that's really taught. Now, the work that we've done at Learning Strategies and the work that you and I have done in self-development identifies people who are self-authoring, and that's the next level up. So the move, taking responsibility, is actually a major transformation. It's not just, I think I'll take responsibility for my life. It really is a big shift to say, I am going to author how this day goes for me. And if something bad happens, it didn't happen to me, it happened for me, etc. But are there some hints from your work of how to do that move, to move from that one level of victimhood into victoryhood?
Yeah, I love, as you know, I love the work you do, Paul. I just
Thanks.
absolutely think it's so brilliant and deep and profound and life-changing. So the very first thing is awareness. If people aren't aware, because we're in our automated patterns, and if your pattern is to just be blaming life or blaming your partner or blaming yourself, if that's your pattern, you've got to become aware of it first.
So we got to hear the blame. We have to hear ourselves going into complaining. We have to hear the excuses we're giving for how things aren't working out. My wife and I like to talk about the blame thrower, getting out your blame thrower and torching everybody who's making your life miserable, right? So yeah, it's a good idea to start with awareness. And that's where I think meditation works, right?
I'm sorry?
That's why I think meditation is so important, that we all have mindfulness practice.
Yes.
That we can keep track of our thinking and our behaving.
Yes. Well, and one of the things I suggest people do is play a little game. It's called the blame, shame, and complain game. And what you do is you just put $1 in a bowl or a bucket every time you find yourself blaming, shaming, or complaining. And you and your family do it, and you'll be amazed by the end of a week, you'll get some good money in there that you can donate to charity but it's just an awareness game. And what I like to do is, you mentioned it, is life in my favor or not? I like to imagine if if something happens that is not the way I wanted it to happen, instead of complaining about it, I ask the question, if this were happening for a higher purpose, or if this were happening for my greatest good, what might that be? And so it's just a different frame in which you're looking at things.
Beautiful. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So then we have the 4 corner pillars, and I'll just say right away what they all are. There's the pillar of the mind, our thoughts. Do your thoughts rob you of your happiness? The pillar of the heart. Do you live with an open heart, with gratitude and loving kindness and generosity? I've never met a happy person who had a closed heart, ever. The third one is the pillar of the body. Do you have the biochemistry of happiness? And that, by the way, is the one where I was the weakest. And that's where I needed to start. I did not have enough serotonin. Do you have the serotonin, endorphins, oxytocin, GABA, all the chemicals. And then the last pillar is the pillar of the soul. And then there's the roof, which is your purpose or passion in life. And then finally, there's the garden. And the garden has to do with who you surround yourself with. So that gives you the whole big picture. And I'm happy, Paul, to go into any more of those in more detail. But what I recommend that people do is look right now. Where do you feel you're the weakest in your life as it relates to happiness? And find something to do in that area to start. So, Paul, I'm going to put you
Excellent.
on the spot. Where are you the weakest?
I don't feel.
Yeah,
I
can agree with you. You don't have. You're doing great.
I am a happy guy, I have to tell you.
You really are.
I mean, it may have taken a few years to get there, but yeah, I've really come to this place where I surround myself with fabulous people. I have a very rich purpose in my life,
Yes.
My spiritual life, my physical life, my mental life, all of it. Open heart. I do want to spend a few minutes on that.
Good, please.
Because this also relates to love for no reason.
Yes.
So the idea, I've heard it forever that, you need to open your heart, need to open your heart, need to open your heart. And every time I said that to my brother, my eldest brother, he's 9 years older than me, he said, one more person tells me that to advance in my work in Qigong or Tai Chi, which is what he does, I am going to kill him. What does that mean? Because he lives in his head.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to really open your heart? And Chen Yi, our friend in Spring Forest Qigong, he says, that's where the action is. The Buddhist Heart Sutra, all of it. Heart, 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 heart. Open your heart, open your heart. That's where healing happens. That's where love happens. That's where happiness happens. All of it happens when you can open your heart. How do you open your heart? Yeah. So my mother passed away just after my sister passed away, within about a year and a half. Really sad, of course. And both of them visited me after their death. They came about a month after they passed in a dream. They showed up, my sister the first time, and said, Paul, I got to show you all this, and kind of laid out some blueprints and said, let me show you how it all works. And all I could say was, Beth, you're here. It's so good to see you. You got to focus. Come on, I got to tell you this. I don't have much time. Couldn't get it. Woke up. None of it made any sense. When my mom passed, the two of them showed up. And my mom started saying, we have it all figured out. We can share with you what it is. And my sister just hit her on the arm and said, don't bother. I already tried. Just show him. And so what they showed me was a male torso and opening the sternum like a cabinet. And inside there was this beautiful thing. It looks like right out of the Catholic Church, the Sacred Heart of Jesus or Mary, it's just like right there. And then they opened that. And inside of that was this beautiful soul energy, whatever it was. And I turned to him, I said, are you giving this to me? And they said, no, this is what you have to do. So I talked to Chen Yi about a year later. I mean, every day in my meditation, that's what I visualize. I visualize that. And then, out of my heart energy, I'm serving the world and on and on. Really has been amazing and wonderful. But from the ancient tradition of the Chinese model, Chen Yi said, Paul, this is exactly accurate. There is one little spot in between all four ventricles where there is a very dark place of blood. And he says, that's where your spirit resides. Your soul is up here, right? If you draw a line here, but your spirit is there, and connecting the soul, which is to the divine, and the spirit, which is in the heart, is our great work as human beings. And so, Marci, I'm giving you all that as a backdrop that even though I don't really know what that means in terms of practices for our listener right now, other than visualizing that, to be aware that our hearts are open and that we can pour out love all day long, and it's always being replenished. It's always being refreshed.
Paul, thank you for sharing that story. It's so beautiful. You know, in the pretty much every tradition has a phrase for that. It's referred to as the inner chamber of the heart, or the
Nice.
diamond in the heart, or the lotus in the heart. It's that very
Perfect.
innermost chamber. And it reminds me, as you're telling the story about your mom and your sister, and how beautiful that they came to you in those dreams with that amazing message. It's said that people who've studied near-death experiences, you know, people who've died and come back, that very commonly they say that at the end of our life, we are asked one question. It's like a final exam. Our final exam question, it is, how much did you grow in your capacity to give and receive love? That's kind of the ultimate purpose that we are here on the planet. And so we all know what it feels like to have our hearts open. We also all know what it feels like to have our hearts closed. And I think that we haven't had great ways of dealing with pain that happens to our hearts. So, like, you know, you get your first grade crush, you know, rejects you, and it's painful. So rather than feeling that, we shut down a little bit. And then something else happens and we shut down a little more. And what I've seen is that the biggest leaps that people make in their life is when they focus on opening their hearts. So practically speaking, what is that? And I love the work of the Institute of HeartMath. I know you're familiar with their work as well. And
yes, all of my inner circle members all have the inner balance sensor that they clip to their ears so that they can do the practice of heart coherence. Yeah, I'm a big fan as well.
So
Yeah.
heart rhythm coherence. I mean, the Institute of HeartMath has found that 5 minutes of feeling anger or frustration can suppress our immune system for up to 6 hours. But 5 minutes of feeling love and gratitude and appreciation can strengthen our immune system for up to 6 hours. And, you know, they show you can see when you're in heart rhythm coherence or not. So it's not rocket science what gets us there. It's what we all know. One of the fast tracks to greater happiness is gratitude. You spoke about it earlier. Gratitude, appreciation, those will open the heart up for anything. And simple practices like just 5 things a day you're grateful for. Or in relationships, Sergio and I, a couple of years ago, we used to do the practice irregularly. Now we do it every night before we go to sleep and every morning when we wake up, which is a few things that we appreciate about each other. So right before we go to sleep, that's what we're doing. We're feeling the appreciation for each other. And then right when we wake up, we're feeling the appreciation for each other. If you're single, you can do it for yourself right before you go to sleep and right when you wake up. So a gratitude, appreciation is one of the pathways, fast tracks, and the other one is forgiveness. I like to think that I've got 2 angels on my shoulders. One angel is the angel of gratitude, and the other angel is the angel of forgiveness. Because when we are keeping our heart closed to somebody or something about something that happened yesterday or 50 years ago, it is not hurting the other person, it's just hurting ourselves. We've all heard that before. But there are just some beautiful, profound forgiveness practices that can really shift how we feel in life. So those are my first 2 go-tos whenever somebody says, I want to be happier: gratitude and forgiveness.
Excellent. Yeah. The idea of forgiveness, love, and kindness is also another one.
Yes.
Practices of kindness. A lot of people are studying that, especially when the pandemic broke out. What can we do to help create more kindness in the world? Also, truth, love, simplicity. Those are three that I have heard. The idea is that we can really place ourselves into a practice that can, on an ongoing basis, move us to a more open-hearted, or what I call wholehearted living.
Yes.
The word courage, courage, comes from coeur, which is French for heart. Age means to be filled with. So anytime that we can live courageously and go ahead and do the forgiveness, be kind, be loving towards ourselves or others, that's going to make a huge difference. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And I just, let me just say one thing about that, because you brought it up. This forgiveness or compassion is important for others. It's equally, or if not more important, for ourselves.
Yes,
that is so key.
And what's so interesting about the research on compassion, it is far more powerful for motivating ourselves than self-castigation or punishing ourselves if we don't do it right, right? So the idea of self-compassion way up on the scale in terms of moving our lives to a more open-hearted way. And our friend Zenda Brooke, who talks about the inner guidance system, talks about, do you feel the openness or the expansion or the contraction? And expansion and contraction is also a good kind of an on-off switch you can recognize. Try to follow what expands you. Try to follow what moves you to a more expansive position.
Absolutely. It is, everything, as we know, everything in the energy, everything in the universe is energy. And there's two energies, the energy of expansion, the energy of contraction. And when we are moving towards greater expansion, we are moving towards greater levels of true lasting happiness. And Paul, since we were talking about the heart, I just wanted to bring up one other thing that I've really has been very helpful for me in looking at the heart. One of my teachers has been a woman named Angelus Arrien. And Angie passed away a number of years ago, but she was a cultural anthropologist and studied the traditions and cultures from people all over the world. And in many traditions, the heart is considered that there are four chambers, the four-chambered heart. And one chamber has to do with the full heart. And the opposite of the full heart is the half heart. So where in your life are you full-hearted? Are you all in? And where in your life are you half-hearted? Not really all in. And then a second chamber of the heart is the strong heart or the weak heart. Where are you showing up in your strength, in your courage, as you would say? Where are you showing up strong-hearted or weak-hearted? Then there's the area of clear-hearted versus doubting. Where are you clear? Where are you doubting or confused? And then the fourth is the open-hearted or the closed-hearted. And so I like to think in those terms. What chamber of your heart right now is calling you the most? Yeah.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Definitely want to track that one down more. So beautiful. Thank you for that reference. It aligns with a lot of what I've been studying and teaching lately. So thank you for that. You and I did the paraliminal on Happy for No Reason. We talk about the pillars and a person identifying how they can move their happiness set point. And I definitely want to direct our listener to that work that you and I did together. It was so fun. I remember recording it in San Francisco with you, and we were so excited.
I remember that so well. And Paul, I just want to thank you for your brilliance with these paraliminal technology, because I cannot tell you how many thousands of people have written me or thanked me for that paraliminal, saying that they go to sleep listening to it and how deeply it changed their happiness set point to just listen to the Happy for No Reason paraliminal. So your work is so brilliant with all the paraliminal.
Thanks. Well, two brilliant people getting together, it's going to be a happy, brilliant moment, right? So, but yeah, thank you for for all the work that you have done. I wanted to kind of wrap our session up with, I think it's something that I got from you, and I think maybe because Bill Levesey talked about it, and we've both worked with Bill Levesey when he was living, it's from an ancient Sanskrit concept of have an intention, give it your attention, and live with no tension.
Yes.
And that phrase, intention, attention, no tension, to me is so brilliant. Could you share the origin of that as you know it? And then how can that help us move forward as we complete our session today?
Yeah, so I also learned that I was probably in my 20s when Bill Levesey shared with me the formula for life, for manifesting, is intention, be clear about what you want, attention, put your thoughts, words, feelings, and actions behind it, and no tension, let go, relax, allow, let the universe move you. And what I found for me is I was not very good at the no tension piece. I got the first two down pretty well, but the no tension piece not so well. And I believe that the origin of this was perhaps the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, where it was spoken about how it's called in Sanskrit dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. And there are those 3 steps for manifesting. And all I know is that if I look at anything that's happened in my life, it's happened through those 3 things. Being as clear as I could be about my highest intention, my soul intention, not my ego intention, my soul-based intention. Putting my energy and life force behind it and letting go. And it's called, our dear friend Jack Canfield, I learned this from him, high intention, low attachment. So we have our intentions, and then we let go and watch what divine grace brings.
Yeah, and instead of having an expectation of how it's supposed to show up,
right,
it's have a high expectancy that it will show up, and just let go at some point. I think that that idea of letting go, I mean, all the good work that you have done, you also know that at some point, giving it up to the greater powers that be, the laws of the universe. I mean, you were in The Secret, you talked about the law of attraction. And is there something that you might suggest as a kind of a farewell note here on our podcast of how someone can truly let go and let come the good, the love, the happiness that's available to them?
It really is a difference in the color glasses that you're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Einstein said the most important question we can ask ourselves is this a loving universe? And the people who are the happiest are those who say yes. Everything may not go my way, the way I think it should go, but ultimately this is a benevolent universe and life is in my favor. So am I looking at life through the glasses of what's wrong? Or I'm looking at life with the glasses of, I am a being of love. I am in a loving universe, and all is happening for our highest good.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much. So beautiful to be with you.
It's always so beautiful to be with you, Paul. I just love it. It's always inspiring and interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, I would be delighted to continue to talk for the next hour and a half, but I am told we can't go that long. So thank you so much. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Marci Shimoff. You can learn more about Marci at marcishimoff.com. That's MARCISHIMOFF.com. And now in the second part of the podcast, it's just you and me. I'll tell you how to use the Paraliminal sessions in the MINDTRX app to easily handle obstacles and move toward the success you want, especially as it relates to our conversation with Marci. If you're new to the relaxing Paraliminal audio sessions, they use breakthrough technologies to activate your whole mind in only 20 minutes to help improve any area of your life. Let's get going. Welcome to the follow-on to my conversation with the amazing Marci Shimoff, where we were talking about happiness for no reason, love for no reason. What a great experience being with her. It was a love fest. Do you think? The two of us just had such a good time together. And in thinking about how you might use paraliminal technology around the many very important and cool ideas that we talked about, I divided it into 5 areas to consider directing your attention. It was raising your happiness set point, self-acceptance, gratitude and forgiveness, living life on purpose, and living wholeheartedly. Now, all 5 of these are huge, important ideas for raising the quality of our life experience on a daily basis. And her work comes from ancient wisdom, philosophies, and the idea that our natural states that we have access to at any moment in time is way higher than what we're trained to experience on a daily basis by the world around us. And perhaps a major part of the work that she and I were talking about is how do we remove these obstacles or the barriers, the blockages to living at a level of joy, happiness, peace, love on a daily basis in our everyday experience. How do we really develop a happiness habit? And, we talked about the idea of a habit of expecting, a habit of expectancy that is far more positive and oriented toward the life that we choose to live rather than the life that we've been trained to live by the culture around us. So let's talk a bit about this first point, which is raising our happiness set point. Marci said at the end of our interview, thank you for this paraliminal technology, but for the paraliminal she and I did together, because thousands of people have written her about what a difference Happy for No Reason has made in their lives for the purpose of raising their happiness set point. And that really is, in her estimation, the real work of her work. That we have naturally these upper limits, and being able to raise that glass ceiling is important. We also talked about the pillars, well, the foundation, the pillars, and the roof, the kinds of behaviors that we can engage in that will help move things forward. So during the paraliminal, you get to really decide which aspect of this work you get to focus on. She had asked me, so Paul, which is your weakest? Admittedly, I don't think there is any particular weak area. Not that I don't have my moments from time to time. It really is something that anyone can identify. Hey, for this listening session, this is the one that's got my attention right now because I'm not feeling particularly strong in that area. And she talked about taking responsibility. And I just love the idea of playing an awareness game. The mind, the heart, the body, the soul, our purpose and passion, and who we surround ourselves with. So the think into her invitation for you, listen to that paraliminal. And I say 1 to 3 listenings is really all you need. And you will really be on track, your mind will get it. Oh, that's what you want. Good. And your non-conscious mind will find the best ways and means to strengthen that area of your life. The other paraliminal around this idea of raising your happiness set point is the paraliminal called joy. And joy really is at the place of our heart energy. So joy or passion is that heart energy. And how can you see in your own life ways in which you can live more joyously, express from a place of greater joy? The second area was the idea of self-acceptance. And this is where the self-love paraliminal, we say love for no reason, was the concept of her second book. This idea of self-compassion, having a compassionate relationship with yourself, indicating that whatever we've done in the past for which we have not been able to forgive ourselves for, this is really going to make a profound difference. And to be able to have a representation of an inner you, an elder you coming to help reassure you that you really are doing the best you can right now, and keep with it. You're setting yourself up for a greater life of even more joy, more happiness in the future by the work you're doing on your life today. Powerful paraliminal, bringing us to a place of really self-acceptance, self-compassion. And compassion, as I mentioned in the interview, is a very powerful way of motivating ourselves to higher levels of expansion, expression, and success. The third area was on gratitude and forgiveness. And we spent a lot of time talking about what do we do to open our hearts. Gratitude paraliminal is that one. It's about the great fullness. Gratitude or gratefulness is about focusing on courage, right? The fullness of the heart, which we can feel. Just hearing her speak brought some tears to my eyes. It's just so moving to recognize that when we treat ourselves and others with gratitude and forgiveness, we're operating at such a high level of vibration. It's just profound. It's awesome. I think about all the movies I watch where I weep the most. It's anytime there is an expression of kindness towards someone else, especially in someone's darkest moments of life, to have a helping hand come in and help lift up. It's so powerful. Gratitude, appreciation, super strong. And the other paraliminal that can help a lot in this area is the one that I did with J.J. Virgin called the Miracle Mindset Paraliminal, where you get to focus on one of 7 different areas. You can probably tell I really like a paraliminal that covers a lot of stuff, but then asks you to focus your intention on one element of it, because working on any one of those is going to help you work on all of them. But the one aspect of it that seems most important for you at this moment on this day, that's one you should be focusing on. It's going to be of the most benefit to you. Miracle Mindset gives you the opportunity to do that. The next area is about living on purpose. And this is where we really are talking about removing the barriers and being able to live wholeheartedly. And this is, I think, the one that runs against the biggest reason we close our heart. Or as a teacher of mine, Dr. Asen, referred to these traumas in our lives that cause our heart to withdraw. So we have the fleshiness of our heart, that's our physical heart, and then we have the essence of our heart, and we withdraw the essence of our heart from the fleshiness of our heart. as a means of protection, protective mechanism, trying to prevent ourselves from having our heart broken again in the future. She referred to it as the first love, and we get our heart broken, so we pull away. And the best paraliminal in this is fearlessness. So don't be afraid to have your heart broken. A heart feels, and it will feel broken from time to time, but your heart won't be broken. It feels hurt. We feel it in our heart, but our heart is always being healed. It's always being replenished. If we live wholeheartedly, if we live with an open heart, love is always backfilling in any area. Give your heart freely. Give love freely. You'll always be replenished in that. And to that point, living life on purpose, at a higher purpose, the paraliminal called self-actualization is so strong, because we're talking about living not only a self-actualized life, which is at Maslow's top of the pyramid, but it's living a self-transcendent life. And a transcendent life is this idea where we are self-authoring, away from the socialized mind to the self-authoring mind. And the next developmental level, a self-transforming mind, really is the highest expression of energy that any human being can achieve. So play with that one. That is a deep drink from the true wealth of the universe when you're listening to that one. Final area is living wholeheartedly. Spent a lot of time talking about that. I've described it here as well. I would encourage you to think about the context of the 5 organ systems from the 5 elements healing paraliminal. The 5 elements are the Chinese medical model, and the 5 organ systems. Happiness is the liver. The heart is joy and passion. So if you want to live wholeheartedly, that's going to be a good one. Balanced with peace and groundedness, the stomach and pancreas. The lungs, contentment, the kidneys, gratefulness, gratitude. And if you place the heart energy in the context of the other organ systems, you are going to be lifting your vibrational level, your happiness set point, because your heart's going to get everything that it needs to fulfill an open-hearted existence, to live wholeheartedly. I think that's the greatest thing we can do, is go all in, right? No withhold. Wake up this day and be all in. Live with a whole heart. And the final paraliminal I'd recommend is Euphoria. Euphoria is that, it's a joy, it's a happiness at a very high level. The Euphoria Paraliminal really puts us in touch with that natural energy that is our birthright. It is who we are. Do live a wholehearted life, happy for no reason, filled with love for no reason. Thanks for being a part of this. Thank you for joining me today. I applaud your willingness to maximize your potential. You can use the paraliminal audio sessions in the MINDTRX app to stimulate your non-conscious mind, that is, your inner mind, to reduce any resistance in your life and to propel you toward the success you want. Go to www.mindtrx.com/go. That's www.mindtrx.com/GO. These amazing audio tools have helped millions, and I encourage you to bring them into your world today. Be sure to be back for more episodes of the MINDTRX podcast. You'll find insightful conversations with authors, experts, and thought leaders, all devoted to improving your life's experience. Thank you again for being here on our MINDTRX podcast.